What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another video from Pink Tourmaline. Sorry, my voice just got a little funny there right when I started recording. Anyways, this is a breakdown of an NDE that I think is very significant, very important, because it tells us a lot about the structure of the system outside of Earth once we pass away and how it's set up and organized. Moreover, I think there's some very interesting significance in this story to the true power of free will and how much authority and how much say we actually have. This is a positive takeaway, despite the fact that I think this NDE, like pretty much almost all NDEs, are filled with a lot of deception and manipulation. Nevertheless, there is a really positive story that emanates from this NDE, which is that we have way more power and authority than we think. And I'm going to explain that as we go along. This guy's really cool, by the way. His name is Royalkye. I don't know. I like the guy. I think he just seems like a cool dude. It's a crazy story of how he passed away or nearly passed away and what he encountered and what he experienced. It's super, super wild on so many levels. The last thing I want to say before we start here is it's so interesting is when people describe intervention, synchronicities, this thing working out, it was like a miracle at a 1,000,000 to 1 odds, and it worked in my favor. It must have been, we put this blanket term of God. And not to say that there isn't a God or a God mind or some sort of initial omnipresent energy that is the source of everything. I'm not saying that that is not the case, but it's very interesting that any sort of interference or intervention that we see occurring that we can't really explain, we just throw this blanket term of God on there. And it occurred to me as I was watching this video and breaking down the excerpts that why is it always just that? Why isn't it always an entity or something that I can't see, something interdimensional, something spiritual? Is it God? Maybe. Is it something else? Is it all positive? Is it in the middle? Does it have a negative intent? And so it's just something that I think we should reframe in our perspective and just not assume that every intervention that we can't explain is attributed to an all-loving, all-benevolent creator. There are, and very well likely is, obviously, if you're watching this channel and you're part of this community, intervention from entities that are not altruistic all the time. And so it's just food for thought for, I guess, people outside of the general population of subscribers and viewers on this channel, something to contemplate. Who is exactly intervening? Are these synchronicities that seem so amazing, that gets you what you wanted on this planet, are they truly for your benefit? Or are they leading you down a path that, while maybe pleasant and great in this life, is still keeping you within the machinery of the system for some ulterior motive? Anyways, food for thought, but let's get into the mix because, like I said, this is a really, really rich NDE with some great takeaways. Let's start off with the accident, and this is significant because the severity of the accident is important later on. Check this out.
And I was going around 30 miles an hour. I didn't have a helmet, and I hit it head first, and I plow into it head first. And when I landed, I hit the cement barrier. It busted my jaw in half. It ripped from my skull on the left side. My entire right side of my face was completely shattered and caved in. I fractured my skull. You can see a little bit of the scars here. I had massive internal bleeding in my brain, my kidney, my spleen, 3 shattered ribs, a shattered scapula, a broken arm, 2 fractures and 3 torn ligaments in my left leg. And I'm on my back. My jaw's busted and hinged. It's ripped from my skull. My skull's fractured, and I'm bleeding profusely, hemorrhaging from my right eye socket into my mouth.
Okay. Crazy amount of injuries. He's on a motorcycle with no helmet. He was hammered, by the way. So I didn't include that part. I don't know exactly on what, but he said he was wasted. He was toasted. Okay. He was driving around toasted with the pizza on the back of his motorcycle. Insane that like 30 miles per hour and he crashes like flies head first and he survives. But it appears that there was some intervention here, but we're going to get to that in a second. Now we begin the NDE. This is the part where he goes in and he talks about what we all consider to be a love bomb. He considers, I think, to be just the feeling of being in heaven, as he describes it, which is funny. I think that notion that you're in heaven or some sort of perfect realm is especially reinforced because of the juxtaposition of that extreme pain or just like existence on earth, and then you're sent to a place that seems so starkly different. So then and then you're also bombarded with this drug-like feeling of love, and he even describes the way he describes it, sounds like a drug. So that, I think, immediately convinces people that don't know otherwise, oh my God, this is the heaven that has always been described or that I've heard talked about. This is it. I'm feeling it. This is crazy. I haven't felt anything like this before. All right, here it is.
Cell in my body. I said, God, please save me if you're real. Please save me. I don't want to die. And at that moment, my soul, my spirit, my consciousness blasts out of my body, just blasts out of my body. And I arrive in the most beautiful place that I've ever experienced in my entire life. It was all pervading, omnipresent, just perfect love, this peace, this bliss beyond anything you could ever imagine. And I've done medicine journeys before with ayahuasca and DMT and LSD, MDMA, a lot of different things, but it was completely different. So I know from a spiritual psychedelic experience is different from where I was. And
that's interesting because I've also had an experience with that. And I was actually just thinking that because I did blast out of my body. That's my recollection, or that's my interpretation of what I experienced. But yeah, of course, I didn't go to a realm. I didn't get love bombed. And there's probably a reason for that. I assume in these types of scenarios, this is just a possible explanation. I don't know if this is correct, but like we don't normally hear of people having these experiences induced with narcotics and then being love bombed and having a life review. That's not really usually what's heard. It's usually only people that have NDEs. Is it because they're more vulnerable because they just experienced something traumatic and they're thrown out of their body? Is it because they might be more receptive to communicating a message since their life was on the line? And I don't know, but possibly yes. This is just a guess as to why these experiences are different, even though they are to some extent achieving a similar end, meaning ejecting your spirit body or your soul from your physical body. I mean, if you think about it, it's not OBEs also. Maybe the distinction is that these are done by choice. OBEs, same thing. It's not like people that are having OBEs every time we're getting love bombed and going into this realm. Oh my God, it's amazing. I want to keep leaving my body. That doesn't happen. So there seems to be something to the fact that when you're ejected by accident, this is when the whole horse and pony show begins versus when it's by intention. Anyways, let's keep playing.
Knew I was in heaven. There was no doubt in my mind that I was in heaven. My spirit, my soul felt like it was home. I knew I was home and I was in the presence of God.
And that's what they wanted. I guarantee that's an exactly hook, line, sinker. That's probably the exact intent, and it worked.
There was no denying it. I will never deny it. And being in that place after experiencing so much trauma and pain and suffering in my life, everything was perfect.
But that's what I'm saying. The juxtaposition of the difficulties, of the pain, of the trauma compared to this realm that seems perfect. In contrast, it gets the full buy-in. So you can see how this all makes sense as a manipulative tactic or strategy. Okay, now here's the really, really important part of this video. There's a straight up negotiation that happens here. And it doesn't make sense if you think about the earth as a school or as a learning ground, or we're here for particular lessons and it's all being orchestrated and set up for our benefit. It doesn't make sense because listen to this negotiation. A typical negotiation, there's quid pro quo. You're giving up something and then you're taking on something else. Or there's some, okay, fine, we can do this, but then it's going to be more difficult or that. There wasn't any of that. He refuses something and then finally says, okay, I will accept this, but you have to meet my conditions. And there was no, okay, well, this is going to make this worse or that worse. It was just like, okay, to me, that shows that he has the ultimate power. He has the ultimate authority. And they're trying any which way possible to get him to go back and continue on his life and continue to be a part of the system for as much longer as they can squeeze out of him. Just like getting him in there and getting more work out of him, more food, more energy, whatever it may be. That's what this sounds like. This does not sound like, hey, great, well, this is part of your journey. Okay, we'll modify it for you. For why? They're supposed to be the guides. They're supposed to be the ones in charge. They're supposed to be the ones that are telling us, listen, you really want to experience this because of blah, blah, blah. And okay, if you don't now, it's going to change the dynamic of whatever this system is that's supposed to educate and grow us in the school paradigm thing, which is nonsense. It's none of that. Okay? And again, this to me is a positive takeaway that ultimately the power and decision was his. Check this out.
Yes, this is great. I'm going to stay here. And then there was this booming voice that was so familiar. That's like, you can't stay here. You have to go back. And I was like, no way. There's no way in hell I'm going back to Earth. Like, no way. No way, dude. It's crazy down there. Like, there's so much pain and suffering. And I'm not going back. Like, this is perfect. Like, this is amazing. I'm going to stay here. And the voice is like, you have to go back. And I'm like, I'm not going back. Like, no way. And then the voice again says, you have to go back. Your job isn't done yet. Your mission isn't complete. And on the third time, when I'm sitting there arguing with this voice, and it's not like we're actually talking because my body is a lifeless, bloody, mangled mess of destruction, right? It's like this telepathy, just this knowing. And on the third time, I see my body from a bird's eye view looking above, and it looked like a murder scene. I mean, there's blood everywhere. I'm just broken and mangled mess. I mean, it's just nasty. And I said, okay, if I have to go back, you have to make sure that I'm not paraplegic. You have to make sure that I don't have a traumatic brain injury and that I'm not a vegetable, and I will go and do whatever you want me to do, but you have to heal me because I'm so broken as a person and I haven't wanted to be alive for a really long time because of the things that I've experienced. And God's like, all right, bet, like, I got you. Okay, I'll give you another chance. And people are like, God doesn't talk like that. It's like, no, God's our best friend. He knows us better than anyone. He created our soul, our spirit, like everything. He's going to talk to you like your best friend, not like, oh, hear thou thine son from the earth. Like, it's not some biblical thing. Like, that's what people get wrong. It's not religion. It's about a spiritual relationship. And so I made a deal on my life. And on that moment, I blasted back down into my body. And for people, like, our souls are pretty big. And to be squished back into your body, into this trauma and pain and destruction, it was the most painful thing I've ever experienced.
Okay, so a lot of things, right? First of all, I've heard that many times that they feel their soul so big. How am I going to get my soul back into this little tiny body? I've heard so many people say that in these NDEs. But there was a straight negotiation, but really it wasn't even a negotiation. It was him giving demands and they relented. Now, I also thought of something else while I was listening to that. We can contrast this with Betty Guadagno's NDE experience. With hers, it wasn't her demanding. She was also refusing, but they used a different strategy. Now, notice the two different strategies. For him, he just said he made all these demands. Boom, bet, we got you. All right. And he agrees. That's it. He basically gave the terms of his contract. They accepted, and that was that. With her, they didn't try and give her something. They didn't try and make it easier. Instead, with her, they threatened her. If you remember correctly, they said, well, if you don't, then you're going to have to go through a much worse life that's going to be even harder than the life that you're living now. And she's like, what? That sounds terrible. Okay, I don't want to do that. And I'm going to go in and just live this life. What does that tell you? Well, I'll tell you what that indicates to me. What that indicates to me is this is a flexible strategy that is person dependent, case dependent. So just like in life, if some people are easier maybe to push this way or pull on the emotional strings that way, like manipulative people will take on whatever strategy is going to work for this, that, or the other person to get what they want. And that to me is what's happening here. Maybe with Betty, for whatever reason, they thought the threat was going to work, and they were right. They have the Akashic records. They know her backwards and forwards. Boom. With this guy, they probably knew, hey, this isn't going to fly. He's made his mind up. He's pushing back hard. Let's just relent. At least we'll get him to go back and stay in the loosh machine for a little bit longer. So all of this, I think, very, very interesting. But ultimately, this tells me that we have a heck of a lot of power, and the law of free will continues to be shown to be respected and adhered to. Therefore, is it that straightforward that if we just simply say absolutely not, no way, that's it? I don't know, but maybe. All right, now this is a wild part that I just wanted to include. This is crazy, but again, not that crazy if you think about the astral and you think about how there's certain probabilities of events and they have way more information and knowledge than we do. And so this message was communicated apparently to his father 2.5 hours drive away. And his dad got this message. He's saying from God, but it's probably just from another entity orchestrating all this. And he just showed up at the scene right after he got into the accident. Like, this is nuts. But again, I think this to me indicates a higher orchestration and a like this deeper intent of a particular type of manipulation. So getting his father to show up there probably was all part of the big show.
And my father shows up pinpoint GPS location to where we were. God had told him hours before, your son is going to be in a motorcycle accident. You need to go here. This was in Utah. He drove 2.5 hours before the accident to be at the corner of where the accident was, only moments after the ambulance shows up. This is insane. This is a God thing, 100,000%. The paramedics run up to him. One of them says, "Sir, you don't want to see this. This is nasty. This guy's probably going to die." And my dad looks at him and he says, "That's my son, and he's going to live. God told me." And the paramedic's like, "What the hell? Like, what are you talking about? You're insane." He's like, "No, God directed me here, and he's going to live."
That's what I'm saying, though, right? We just assign, hey, it's a higher voice, or it's something that's interdimensional that we can't explain. God, that label is put on it. But if you really think about it, if there was truly an intent to stop this or something along those lines, he would have told him to show up 15 minutes earlier and stop the accident. He would have told whatever it may have been, right? But to me, that indicates this entity or these entities that are orchestrating this or want this to happen maybe wanted him there for what? I don't know, for a more emotional extraction, for who knows, however this played into the whole theme and story of what they were trying to have happen here. But I just thought that was pretty wild that his dad got this message and got in his car, drove, and was there right at that last point. Now, last thing I'm going to talk about is the injuries, because this has to do with the bargaining that he had mentioned, that he remembers explicitly bargaining, saying, "I don't want brain damage. I don't want to be a paraplegic." This is a horrendous crash. You'll hear this from the doctor. And he got what he asked for, which is insane that he had no injuries.
And they start reconstructing my face from inside my mouth, behind my eye socket, putting in titanium plates and screws and reconstructing my entire face. And 11.5 hours later worth of surgery, a day and a half later, I wake up in the hospital and I'm like, "Where am I? What's going on?" And the doctor's like, "Dude, you are the luckiest man alive. How are you even alive after that? I've never seen anything like this. You're a miracle, man." And I'm like, "Dude, what happened?" They're like, "You were in a motorcycle accident. You should be dead. Like you have no spinal column injury, no traumatic brain injury. Like, we didn't have to do surgery on your brain. Like, this is insane." And I'm like, God saved me.
So you know what this tells me, right? It's such a beautiful, positive message that comes through. And I want to say it's not God that saved him. It's him that saved him. It's him that basically was strong enough to demand what he wanted when he came back, and they had to relent. This to me is such a powerful reminder of the place of free will, at least I think, in this whole grand scheme of everything that is happening in this matrix, in this system. And he exercised his free will. He did not back down. He did not relent, and he got that outcome. And I get we are conditioned to put this blanket statement of God on everything that we kind of can't explain. But this is certainly not explainable in, like the mainstream of life and what we normally learn through the mainstream education system, whatever. But obviously this is seems to be some sort of interdimensional interference and intervention that has led to all of this and led to this outcome. And why it happened is, I think, because of him, not because of the benevolence or the, these different things that are coming from the highest upon high of spiritual powers. This, I think, came as a product of his wherewithal. Really, really cool stuff. And again, you let me know if you agree or disagree in the comments. But to me, this is a massive positive takeaway about how all of this works. I feel like we keep seeing this message echoed over and over. Now, the only thing I would say at the end as one other possibility is maybe we don't know the stories of if, like, they just continue to refuse. Like, what would have happened? Would he have actually stayed up there? We don't know, because then he would have stayed and he wouldn't have come back. And are there stories? I believe there are some, but not many, where they refuse, and then they kind of get thrown back in to the bodies. Like, I think I haven't come across those specifically, but if they exist, they're far and few between. But maybe they're more than we think. And maybe the reason why they try to do it this way first is because if they get the buy-in, it works out better. I don't know. I just want to throw it out there that there could be more to the story than just simply, hey, exercising our free will and they can't do anything. They're powerless. It may be a bit more complicated than that. But at a minimum, let's put it like this. At a minimum, this is this is positive to me, that our free will and our word and our authority and what we want means something. That's all I got for you guys in this video. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Thank you guys so much for joining, and we'll see you in the next video. Take it easy.